The dreaded C word, cancer. Something that I personally never thought would be a part of my life story. Growing up active, earning 16 varsity letters in high school, going on to play college basketball, I just never saw myself being diagnosed with cancer. Spoiler alert, most people don't. Here we are, I was diagnosed at age 26 with a rare form of skin called mucosal melanoma. And in this video, I want to share some insider tips, debunk some myths about cancer. So whether you're going through it, a loved one is going through it, or you just want to be aware of it, because the truth is in the United States this year alone, 2 million new cancer diagnoses will be made. So in order to keep things light, because as I sat down to write this, I got triggered, I clammed up, I almost didn't press record. We're gonna play a little game of fact or fiction as I share what my journey has looked like and things that I picked up along the way of an original cancer diagnosis. And for recurrences, don't worry, I'm now celebrating 3.5 years disease-free and hoping and praying for many more to come. Okay, as we play fact or fiction, I'm gonna give a little pause so that you can kind of play along and give your guess before I raise my paddle and let you know if it's fact or fiction. Number one, get ready to play. Cancer only happens to old people, excessive smokers, drinkers, and those who engage in risky behaviors and lifestyles. Fiction. So although most cancer diagnoses happen to those over age 45, doctors are seeing an increase in younger people being diagnosed with cancer, those under the age of 50, and 25,000 new cases of cancer in young people are going to happen this year alone. So you're not immune. Anything can happen. Like me, I was young, I'd never smoked, drank, done any of those things in my life, and I was diagnosed when I was 26. I remember as I was going through all my doctor's appointments and treatments, I'd kind of have a pity party because I'd look around and I felt like everybody in the waiting room was so much older than me. It was really important that I was able to connect with some other young people going through it, especially young moms, and that was so helpful for me to understand that other people were navigating something as hard as this. We could draw strength in that kind of collective group. Community is huge, and we talk about that in a lot of videos on this page, not just with business, but also with life. I found that connection and community are a huge piece of the solution to any problem. Okay, next one is that cancer patients always look like cancer patients. What do you think? Fact or fiction? Fiction. So true story, I pulled up to Huntsman Cancer Institute in Utah to get a treatment, and patients are able to valet their cars, and I pulled up to valet, and the valet guys, sweet as they are, looked at me and said, "Oh no, this is for patients." That was a really tough moment for me because I was like, I know I'm young, I know I shouldn't be going through this or shouldn't be dealing with this, but I am. Because the truth is that none of us walk around with these signs on our foreheads that say what we're going through. And so not all cancer patients look like cancer patients. The disease of cancer doesn't discriminate. People can be young, old, black, white, big, small, super fit, unhealthy. It's everywhere in between. So nobody is immune, and somebody going through it doesn't always look like they're going through it. Every cancer patient loses their hair. What do you think? Fact or fiction? Fiction. So personal story here is that when I was about to go through chemotherapy, my doctor said that most patients on my chemotherapy regimen lose their hair, only 20% don't. Literally was ready to take a razor to my head. My husband, the one time he's been right, don't tell him, said, "Hey, let's just wait and see what happens." Miraculously, lo and behold, I didn't end up losing my hair when I went through chemo. And I know other women who have either tried cold caps or different things. Some people might just have thinning, so not everybody loses their hair, not everybody looks like they're going through cancer. Next up is stage 4 means terminal, uncurable, that you only have X number of months or years to live. What do you think? Fact or fiction? Fiction. I'm living proof of this. So I had actually had an original diagnosis, and I had a couple local recurrences, which it means that it came back in the original spot that it popped up. Then I went through a miracle pregnancy, delivered a healthy baby boy. This was in 2019. And then I had a recurrence in my brain, which then classified me technically as stage 4. Tough, right? You can imagine that my thoughts were all over the map, and my thoughts were worst case scenario. In those early days and weeks of meeting with doctors and getting treatment plan in place, one of my oncologists said, "Hey, traditionally this is incurable," which was really tough to hear, and was one of the things that kept me up late at night in my closet or caused me to have some of my worst mental moments during my treatment and recovery. Here we are 3.5 years after those words were spoken. I had a recent telehealth with one of my other oncologists. We're going going through the appointment and he looks up and he says, yeah, I think you're probably cured. Not to laugh, but I laid my head down on the table and I looked up to him and I said, don't just say it like you're ordering pizza off a menu. What do you mean by that? So the truth is that I received some cutting edge therapies that weren't available as little as 10 years ago. So doctors and experts and the smartest scientists in the world can't tell for sure if it's a cure. They also can't say that it's not a cure because we don't have people who have gone through it and lived 40 years. So the point here is that a lot of times when we're going through either cancer or chronic disease, our mind goes to worst case scenario. But what I've learned is you really just need to find a key to solve that problem in the short term and know that additional cutting edge therapies are being developed right now somewhere in a lab, they're being tested. So we really just have to find the solution for today to know that cutting edge therapies are going to be available shortly down the road. So that's something that's definitely given me hope in my experience, in my treatments, and in my journey. Next one here is that people diagnosed with cancer love hearing about your relative that went through the most horrific treatment and died from cancer. No, like I think it's human nature that when someone is going through something hard and you're either hearing it for the first time or you're trying to console them, human nature is like, how can I relate? How can I share an experience of mine or a story that I know that's going to relate to the situation? Try to throw it out the window and all you need to do is be present, give love, sit with that person as they are healing and as they're working with God to heal themselves. You don't need to come up with a solution, tell them what supplements to take, or tell them the horror story of your aunt 3 times removed that went through something. Personal story here is I have had lots of these instances that have happened and I've gotten better with addressing them and managing them as time's gone on, but I was at a birthday dinner once with other women and they were asking me about my health and I was kind of giving an update. I was maybe 1 or 2 years disease-free at this point. And one of the women started telling a story about someone she knew that was diagnosed with cancer. I could see where it was headed. I was out with my friends. I was having fun. I was not in the mood to be triggered. So I said very politely but firmly, oh, this isn't a horror story, is it? Well, yeah, it doesn't have a great ending. I said, oh, okay, well, let's maybe just not go there tonight. Can you guys pass the appetizers and what else do we want to talk about? Absolutely 100% true. And we all laughed and we all moved on. And it wasn't rude, but it was firm and it was setting a boundary. Couple takeaways here. Number 1, don't share the horror stories, supplement regimens, advice medically, okay? Unless it's asked for. Number 2 is if you're the one navigating it or going through it, and this probably applies to lots of other things in our life that we don't want to talk about or that are going to feel triggering, it's okay to set a polite but firm boundary there and say, hey, I don't want to go there. Let's move on to something else. Next one is fact or fiction. There are over 200 different types of cancer. What do you think? Fact. So there's lots of different types of cancers, which means that typically each case is going to have a unique treatment pattern and protocol to follow. So what I mean by that is that a breast cancer patient might have different treatment protocols depending on what type of breast cancer they have. Definitely going to have a different treatment protocol than somebody going through melanoma or pancreatic cancer. So the commonalities are that you may have some type of infusion, you may have some type of radiation, you may have some type of surgery, but also keep in mind that with over 200 different types, there's going to be different protocols, treatments, and plans based on your unique case. Okay, so next up is that when you are diagnosed with cancer, each cancer patient is assigned a case manager to help you schedule your appointments, navigate your treatment plan, get nutrition instructions, get activity and exercise regimens. So fact or fiction, each cancer patient is assigned a case manager to manage all of that for them. What do you think? I wish it wasn't fiction, but it's fiction. For me, I even have a background as a nurse, and it was very difficult in those early days, weeks, months to navigate this process and to align the doctor's appointments and to align the imaging tests and to figure out how can I schedule my doctor's appointments and so that they can line up with that. The number one thing that I've learned here, so I'm going to give you the freaking roadmap. A lot of times when you have a cancer diagnosis, you're going to have scans, and they might be short intervals at first and then they'll space out. Like now I'm at a 9 to 12 month interval. Graduated from like baby steps of 3 months. And what I've figured out is I typically will call the doctor's office, the doctor that is gonna read my results and let me know if I'm still cancer free or what the results are. I'll call and ask which day that they're in clinic. They're not in clinic every day. So if they say, hey, they're in Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays, I will schedule an appointment, try to make it in as advance as possible. Then I will call the imaging department and try to get an early morning imaging appointment that same day. knowing that my doctor's appointment is going to be in the afternoon. At least where it works in my healthcare system is that the imaging results are entered into the computer within a couple hours of actually being performed. So as long as I do my imaging early in the morning and I don't meet with my doctor until later afternoon, typically I'm able to come right in, they look at the imaging and they tell me, hey, everything's good. The reason why I like to do it that way is then I'm not waiting days, weeks, or even months to get my results or talk with my doctor. A lot of times there's apps now where you can read your own results. That is just such a high stakes, anxiety ridden thing to just read on a computer screen by yourself. If there is a problem, you do want to be in the presence of your healthcare provider if at all possible, so that they can start to walk you through the plan and the steps moving forward. Just a little golden nugget, something that I've learned and I've absolutely had to navigate on my own, but has helped decrease my anxiety tremendously. On to the next one here is that cancer patients just want to be left alone. Fact or fiction, what do you think? They're going through a lot, it's personal, it's private, that's just to give them their space. Fact or fiction? I'm going to put fiction with an asterisk. The caveat here is that each person is going to manage, navigate, and deal with this individually and uniquely. For me, I definitely wanted my inner circle there and present, and I'm lucky enough that I had a present inner circle and I had a ton of support. I saw many fellow patients that struggled to even get a ride to the hospital on their appointment and treatment days. So I recognize that I'm privileged in that way. I think that if you're navigating it from somebody on the outside, show up for that person. Don't offer to fix it. Sit with them, love them, and ask them how they want you to show up. And you could even say, here's 3 options. Pick one. I can leave some groceries on your doorstep. You don't even have to talk to me. I can bring lunch over and we can eat and chat over lunch. I can take your kids for a couple hours. Offering that bulleted list makes it so much easier for somebody to just choose a number. Sometimes we feel really awkward when someone asks us,
what can I do for you?
And it just feels very burdensome to tell them specifically what we need. So a few tips there. People definitely did that for me and I was super, super grateful. People going through cancer do want community, they do want love, but they might differ in what feels like love to them. Last one here is that a cancer diagnosis always means that you need to stop working and give up your career. What do you think? Fact or fiction there? My answer here is both. It can be fiction, it can be fact, because if you've got a really tough, aggressive diagnosis and you've only got a short time, you're probably not going to be working. However, in the vast majority of cases, you can continue your life. I remember sitting on my bed with my sisters and my mom in the room shortly after I had my first recurrence. I had just started my business about 3 months prior. And I remember sitting there after we heard the news that my cancer had returned and saying, I guess I'm going to have to give up Lactation Link. I was really excited about it. And there was a pause in the room, and then immediately all of them said, you aren't going to give it up. You're going to keep doing it. So that's a testament to, number one, surround yourself with amazing and supportive people. And number two is that you can continue to live your life in the majority of cases through this. Now it's going to be paused, it's going to be interrupted, it's going to be inconvenienced, it's going to have way more sick days than if you weren't going through this. But my physicians actually encouraged me to continue working. And I'll say that it definitely building something reaffirmed to me that there was a future to build for. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful for you or someone you know. At the very least, you know a little bit more about my absolutely unexpected cancer journey. If you have a question, drop it in the comments below. Can't wait to see you in the next video.